Yes. What's happening, everybody? It's Wednesday night. It's going to be just the tip, but we had to postpone it one day. Was out of town yesterday, and the hotspot ran out of data. Could not even access the internet, so that made it impossible for me to do this. Appreciate you guys being patient and waiting until Wednesday night at 10 o'clock Central Time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We're going to break down all 13 fights on the UFC San Antonio card that's taking place this Saturday. And it's going to be headlined by Marlon Chito Vera versus Corey Sandhagen. Really, really good bantamweight main event. That bantamweight weight class is an absolute meat grinder. The amount of wins that you have to put together to get into that top five and the guys that you got to beat to get to the top of that ladder is just an absolute murderer's row. And now we got two of these murderers up here in the main event for this great event with a lot of violent fights. I'm really looking forward to breaking these down with you guys. This is 13 really solid fights on this card. And then we're going to have a much needed week off. We've had 8 straight weeks of UFC action. So yeah, we got next week off, and then we're going to come back even stronger than ever for another 7-week stretch of UFC action. So definitely a much needed week off, but we're going to finish with a bang here. Some really good fights. We even got Chidi Bang Bang and Njokuani, one of the guys that's going to help us finish with a bang this weekend. So really looking forward to chopping it up with you guys. Appreciate all you hanging out here at 10 o'clock Central Time on a Wednesday night with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We normally do this at 10 o'clock Central Time on Tuesday nights, but like I said, had to postpone it this week. What is up to everybody in the chat? Let's see who is in here with us today. We've got Stephen Baldwin is in the room. And he is saying, Weezy, F baby, what's going on, Steven? Good to see you in here. Thank you for hanging out with us. We got Anthony W. in the room saying, set an alarm to catch this one. Appreciate you hanging out. We got Bob Spikerman's in the room saying, let's go. Chidi inside the distance and under 1.5. Cap money line. Vergara money line and under 1.5. Pineda fight does not go to decision. Loco Torres inside the distance and fight doesn't go to decision. Home money line, the over in the home fight. Nate the Train over, and I got to take a small stab on Cheeto at these odds. Stack it, says Bob. I like all those spots, and you are going to hear that as I break down all these fights. I think you're on the right track there, Bob. If you have a good week, I'm going to have a good week. We got my guy Victor De Jesus in the room saying, oi, yes, what's up, Weezy in chat? Let's make the bag this weekend. Let's get it, Vic. Let's get it, my man. We got M.A. Liren in the room saying, oi. Unfortunately, today will be my last time for a while catching you live, so I'd like to take the chance to thank you for your work bringing skyscraping, wallet-thickening, glorious waffle towers. New schedule soon, so I'll have to adjust to watching you after, but wouldn't miss it. Cheers, Unc. Truly tremendous damage you're helping us to cause to the bookies. I appreciate you, M.A. Liren. Thank you so much for hanging out live. And even though you can't hang out live with us in the future, you can still watch right here on YouTube when I'll be posting these every week that we got UFC fights. Appreciate you hanging out. We got Daz Files in the room saying, oi, let's go. Got to chase my losses. Just kidding. Yeah, always chase those losses, right? We got Silky B in the room saying, best violence value. Love you, man. The best violence value right now, I would say under 2.5 in that Kape fight is a really good one. I like the under 1.5 or the fight doesn't start round 2 for the Loco Torres fight. Those are my two favorite. Oh, and I also like the fight doesn't go to decision for Duraev versus Njokuani. I feel that's got a really good chance to finish inside the distance. 3 great violent spots there. We got Nigel Lee, a.k.a. Money Bank Lock, saying, oi, my favorite uncle in chat. We are coming for blood and ass shavings galore this weekend. War Cheeto at plus 140. It's going to be such a good fight, man. I can't wait to talk about that one. We got Dirty Riverfish in here saying, oi! And we got Kevin saying, happy Cheeto Vera fight week to all who celebrate. I definitely celebrate. And happy Corey Sandhagen fight week to everybody. And happy Tamires Vidal fight week. We got a list of bangers out here, you guys. We got Scanfield Films in the room saying, all my favorite shows star Uncle Weezy. I appreciate you, man. We got Bo Jackson in the room saying, Oi! We got M.A. Liren saying Wi-Fi acting up again. It was up in Michigan, where it was just the what do you call it? The hotspot ran out of data. So yeah, it's when you're on those hotspots and in places that don't actually have Wi-Fi, it's a messed up place to be. We got Gran Escarabajo in the room saying let's oi. We got Dirty Riverfish saying Cheeto. We got Cole Stein saying, oi, Unk, hungry for flapjacks this weekend? I am definitely hungry for flapjacks. You know that, Cole. I'm hungry and we need to eat. And ring a ding ding. My guy CD in the room with the $5 donation saying, oi, what's up, everybody? It's Holly Holm Fight Week. Yes, it is. Thank you so much for the donation, CD. It is much appreciated, man. Helping keep the lights on here in the office of your Uncle Weezy, where I do all my work getting ready for these shows, man. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And join the Patreon if you guys haven't already. Only $5 a month. It's going to be going up to $10 very soon for that basic stats package that I did all the work getting the offensive and defensive distance striking stats, and we've got all the stats by target. We got a lot of new stuff in there, so we're gonna be bumping that up to $10 a month very soon. But the $20 a month option for the advanced stats package and the prop template is going to stay the same. We're going to have some new products added to the Patreon soon. So join that Patreon. It is a great value for what you get. We got Dirty Riverfish saying, Unk, can we see you go positive for fuck's sake? Well, I mean, I'm positive on the long term, but yeah, I was up just a little bit and then came down. Now I'm down like a unit on the year or something like that. But hey, man, it's gonna come. It always does. When you stick to what works, when you find value, and when you do it over and over and over and over again. The fighters are only going to fuck you so many times. The judges are only going to fuck you so many times. The referees are only going to fuck you so many times. And I'm lining up and taking my share of fuckings, believe me, over and over and over again, like bad variants in my face. But I still come out ahead, and I will this year as well, like I always do. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting positive and doing it this week. We've got WW saying Cheeto will be the first to knock out Corey out cold on God. Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody that can do it, it is Cheeto Vera, because that dude has got serious power. Cuban Assassin in the room saying, what it do, Weezy? I think Alfred E. Newman, I think Greg Jackson has got to have the Chuck Liddell retirement talk with Holly if she loses this week. That is not going to happen, Cuban Assassin. Holly Holm just inked a new 6-fight deal with the UFC. That is today's newest news. So Holly Holm will not be having that retirement talk, because she's going to be fighting not only on Saturday, but 6 more times for the UFC. So unbelievable there. And she's 41 years old. Jester is in the room saying, let's get it, Weezy. Any fine ale this evening? Yes, sir. I have got an M43 from Southwest Michigan here, which is a hazy pale ale. Something I always drink when I'm out there in Michigan, one of their local beers. That's one of my favorites. The M43 from Old Nation Brewery is what your Uncle Weezy is sipping on during Just the Tip this evening. Oh, yeah. All right. What do we got here? We got Bob Spikerman's saying, let's stack those flapjacks together then, my man. Let's get it, dude. Chidi to win by broken orbital. Yeah, I think that can absolutely happen, especially after it just happened to Duraev in his last fight. And we got Liam Smith saying, Corey has speed up to the gills, but Cheeto has serious momentum behind him. Should be a greasy match. It's one of the best main events that we're going to see this year, probably, because Cheeto Vera never disappoints. And 5-round Cheeto Vera is an absolute must-watch every damn time. Just like Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy is a must-watch every single week, you guys. Let's bring up these stats. I will share my screen with you guys. And there we go. And let's get to the very first fight of the night here. And it is going to be, oh, and by the way, yeah, last week we were down 1.65 units. We had just gotten into the positive for the year, and we had no money line bets. We won the over 1.5 rounds at minus 150 for 1.5 units. We won a unit there. We won the over 1.5 on the Amir Khani Shore fight. We had one minus 130 for 2.6 units. We won 2 units there. The Barberena Gunnar Nelson over 1.5 rounds. I just needed that to go for the last 10 seconds of the first, and then it probably goes over 1.5 because it always takes Gunnar a few minutes to work for that submission, and he's not great with the takedown. So that one was a very, very bad beat, getting subbed in the last 10 seconds of round one, but it is what it is. And then I had 2 units on that Veronica Macedo, Juliana Miller fight doesn't go to decision. That's minus 2 units there. And then LaRon Murphy to win by knockout for a quarter unit was also a loser. So minus 1.65 units, coming off a 3.25 unit win the week before that. So let's just get that one loss in the rearview mirror and get on to this week. So let's see. Let's get these stats up. And then we've got Cowan versus Vidal. And the fight, right, we've got Hailey Cowan right now, and all lines are courtesy of Bet Online Sportsbook, betonline.ag, and we see that Hailey Cowan minus 117, Tamires Vidal minus 103. The fight doesn't go to decision, up at plus 150 right now. And there are the stats. Let me get my notes up. So let's start talking about Hailey Cowan here. Hailey is a lifelong athlete. She's 31 years old. She's been a pro fighter for almost 5 years now. She's got 9 pro fights, over 80 minutes in the pro cage. She's 7-2 as a pro with 2 wins by submission, 2 by knockout, and 3 by decision. And she's been submitted in both of her pro losses. Hailey is a southpaw who didn't start MMA until the age of 26. Prior to that, Hailey was a junior Olympic gymnast. She was a 2-time All-American gymnast at Baylor University and also did pro cheerleading and fitness competitions. She's tall, lean, but extremely athletic and explosive. Her kicks get up fast and have power on them. You can see the highlight reel KO knockout that Cowan landed versus Sotak to see how powerful and fast she can be with her kicks. Her setbacks came in her pro debut versus Victoria Leonardo at 125 pounds. I'm not sure how she made 125. And when she shot a sloppy takedown, she got reversed, and eventually Victoria Leonardo got to Hailey's back and sunk in the rear naked choke. And against Clayton, as a minus 435 favorite, Hailey Cowan got out-grappled on the ground after she was dropped early in the second round, and she got guillotined shortly thereafter. Hailey has also had 2 very close fights against Brittany Cloudy and Claudia Lecha that both went to decision and could have went either way, but Hailey got the nod in both fights. Hailey's extremely strong, so she has the ability to hold her opponents against the cage and win minutes there, but everything else is still a work in process for her. But she's athletic, she's fast, she's dedicated, and she's got good cardio, so this is a good spot for her to maybe show some improvements. But it's actually Tamires Vidal that's the younger fighter here by a lot. She's 24 years old while Hailey's 31. So she's a prospect coming off a first-round jumping knee to the liver that she got the win over Ramona Pascual. And she's 7-1 right now with 90 minutes in the pro cage. And she's got 3 finishes in her 7 pro wins, 1 knockout and 2 submissions. Her striking is way below average. She tends to try to win minutes holding her opponents against the cage. She's got a decent top game when she does manage to get on top. But we saw in the Aylin Perez fight, when she faces a UFC level fighter, that she actually loses those clinch and grappling exchanges. And Aylin pretty much dominated versus Tamires, even though she was fouling her constantly. Outside of those fouls, Aylin was the one doing better work. Vidal's only pro loss right now is to Carol Hosa, and she's only 24 years old, so she can certainly improve and figure out how to put her MMA game together as well. But Hailey's 2 inches taller. She's got 1 more pro fight, and she's been the better finisher thus far in her career. She's definitely the better athlete, and she does a great job of winning minutes in the clinch with her strength and size, which is also where Vidal does her best work. I rate Hailey as the better distance striker, but I honestly see most of this fight taking place in the clinch. So I'll take the stronger, better athlete here in Hailey Cowan, and I'll pick her to win by decision. So we'll go over here to the Tapology page, and we'll go to the fight card. And I'm sorry, I have to hit make picks instead. And let's go to the make picks, and we'll go down to that curtain jerker. Cowan versus Vidal, and we're going to pick Hailey Cowan to win by decision. All right, the next fight that we're going to talk about is Victor El Magnifico Altamirano is going to be squaring off against Vinicius Salvador. Altamirano minus 101, Salvador minus 119. The fight doesn't go to decision, juiced up at minus 175 here. So there is the Altamirano Salvador stats. And El Magnifico is the first one that we're going to talk about here. And he's a 32-year-old Mexican fighter who has good size for the flyweight division. He's 5'8". He's got a 70-inch reach. He's a switch stance fighter with 11-2 pro record. 6 of those 11 wins come inside the distance. He's got 4 submissions, and he's got 2 knockouts. And Vic has got a 5-1 record in his decisions. The only loss coming via split decision to Carlos Hernandez in his UFC debut, and that was a very close fight. But as was some of the wins that he's had were very close fights as well. On the feet, Victor has a traditional martial arts style. He darts in and out of range. He throws a lot of kicks, especially to the body. He really reminds me of a karate-style fighter, and he does explode when he throws, and he looks to land big shots. One of those big holes in Victor's game is his willingness to play jiu-jitsu off his back and lose long stretches of the fight doing that. He's comfortable striking from his back and wasting time throwing up submission attempts, so Vic should be avoided against wrestlers with good top control, but this matchup isn't that. Victor was well tested on the regional scene pre-UFC, winning a 5-round unanimous decision over Nate Smith. He won the LFA flyweight title in that bout. He's got a win over 14-6 Lloyd McKinney by triangle. He's got a win over 4-1 Chris Ocon by split decision back in 2020. He's got a unanimous decision win over João Camilo back in 2019. And his lone pre-UFC loss came against Jared the Monkey God Brooks by rear naked choke at 4:19 of round 2, where Jared dominated with his wrestling and top control. Victor's well tested. He's got solid conditioning. He's dangerous and busy on the feet, and he does great work with top control, from top control with ground and pound and with back takes. And Victor can absolutely take a punch, you guys. He's got an excellent chin. He's very, very durable. Now, on the other side, we got Vinicius Salvador here, and he's a really fun prospect from Brazil who trains under Marcelo Ribas, Amanda Ribas' dad. He's an unorthodox striker. He uses his length well. He has a ton of finishing power with his striking on the feet. Vinicius has a 100% finish rate in his 14 pro wins, and 13 of those finishes coming by way of knockouts. So it's safe to say that Vinicius does his best work on the feet at distance striking range. Vinicius has been finished, though, in 3 of his 4 pro losses, so he's definitely a kill-or-be-killed fighter, with 17 of his 18 pro fights finishing inside the distance. Salvador is an unpredictable wild man on the feet, and he will literally throw just about anything, including rolling thunder kicks, spinning hook kicks, and those dumbass behind the leg, low leg kicks, where he looks like he's doing like an Irish dance step. It's really weird. And he just throws a lot of unpredictable shit, and it comes from very weird angles, and a lot of it is thrown with 100% power. Vinicius is not looking to wrestle, and his takedown defense isn't good, but he will show the tendency to give up a lot of minutes on the ground when his opponent does wrestle. Because Vinicius is such an opportunistic finisher with the strikes he lands, he seems uninterested in the fact that he loses minutes because he has so much faith in his ability to be able to find the finish. Even after losing like big parts of fights, he feels like he can just find that one shot and win it back. So he and Victor Altamirano tend to give up a lot of minutes on the ground. But the biggest problem I have with Vinicius is his pro record. This guy has not beaten anybody. His Dana White Contender Series win came against a mechanic who had a 22-hour flight to get to Vegas. 3 of his 4 previous wins prior to DWCS came against guys in Wallace Vamparino, Leonardo da Silva, and Andre Teixeira. All 3 of these guys had 0-0 records and all never fought again after losing to Salvador. So let's look at this, because this is actually very, very troubling in my opinion. We look at the fight card here and we go down Salvador, who's 14-4, right? Now, the career starts back in 2014, and he goes on a 5-fight winning streak. He loses to a 7-7 guy in 2015. Who cares? It's 2015. Then he loses 3 out of 4 fights here in 2018 and 2019. He loses to Luis Filho, 9-3, to Rafael Costa, 8-1, who's very good, to Javel Filho, who we just saw, 11-2. And he beats Andre Teixeira, Leonardo da Silva, and then up here is Wallace Vamparino. So when he's 12-4, he's taking a fight against a guy that's 0-0 and beating him in the first round. The guy never fought again, right? The win before that against Tarcisio Gomez, he gives up the entire first round on his back to a guy that's 10-5 and doesn't have any important wins on his record either. So he was losing that fight until he caught a shot, and Tarcisio had slowed down a little bit. Then the win before that, Leonardo da Silva, 28 seconds of round 1. 0-1, dude never fought again. Why are you taking fights against guys that are 0-0 when you're supposedly a prospect that's supposed to be good? He's 10-4 when he takes the Leonardo da Silva fight. There's no fight canceled before that. The guy's not a late minute replacement. The Wallace Vamparino fight on 4/16, there's no other fight scheduled. He's taking a fight as a 12-4 veteran, 7-year veteran of the sport, against a guy that's never fought before and will never fight again as a pro. And it's the same thing down here in the Andre Teixeira. Andre Teixeira, oh, he's actually 3-3 now. They found some fights from this guy. But yeah, he after the Vinicius Salvador fight, he actually strung together 3 wins against a couple of 0-0 guys. And then he lost to a 1-0 guy and a 3-4 guy. So this is, and those just got added, I promise you, because let's see how it, when I checked that yesterday, he had been listed as still at 0-0. So it's a very strange situation that this guy is taking fights like that after he's supposedly already a prospect. So until further notice, I'm saying that this guy might be a big fat phony because he's never beaten anybody. And this guy Altamirano, he's been very well tested on the regional scene. So, but I mean, we know what he's good at, though. Victor Altamirano is going to be 1 inch taller. He's a switch stance fighter. He's going up against the southpaw. He's got almost 40 more minutes in the pro cage. He's got 18 more minutes in the UFC cage, while Salvador is making his UFC debut here. Victor has a huge durability advantage because he's never been finished as a professional by knockout. He has been subbed once by Jared Brooks. And he's a better wrestler and grappler here, as Salvador is primarily a striker. Victor has fought and definitely beaten the far better brand of competition as a pro. Vinicius is 6 years younger, and he's got 5 more pro fights and 3 more years as a pro fighter. So he's at the age where he could still be improving, and he did show off good improvements in the Shannon Ross fight. He has a ton of power on the feet, and he's by far the more opportunistic finisher, especially in the striking realm. I think this fight is close on the feet as both guys are dangerous. However, I think Altamirano's durability advantage will be huge, while this is on the feet, as Salvador has 2 career losses by knockout, and he was actually getting tuned up for a stretch of the fight there by Shannon Ross. Victor also has some very solid top game, and we saw him win minutes in control time positions in the Hernandez fight against a guy who was a very good grappler in his own right. And we saw when he got on top against Daniel Da Silva, he just absolutely destroyed him, defended all the submissions that Da Silva threw up, and finished that fight with ground and pound. So I feel as if Victor can get this fight to the ground if he doesn't like how it's going on the feet. And since I think it's close on the feet, I'm going to pick Altamirano, and I think I'm going to pick him to win it by third round submission. As Altamirano has twice as many submissions on his pro record as he does knockouts. So go back here to making picks. And Cowan decision. And then it's going to be Altamirano, El Magnifico by third round submission. And until further notice, I'm putting out the big fat phony alert on Vinicius Salvador. I need him to beat a legitimate mixed martial artist. And he has not done that yet. So I'm looking for him to do that against Altamirano. He can absolutely shut me up by beating Victor Altamirano, but I've got a bet on Altamirano. I think he gets the job done here. I'm looking for El Magnifico to finish this fight late. All right, next fight is going to be Manuel El Loco Torres at -140, squaring off against the Samurai Ghost, Trey Ogden, +120. We got the fight doesn't go to decision, juiced up at -230 here. All right, let's go. I am a big fan of Loco Torres, you guys. The guy has never been in a boring fight, and he is really fun to watch. Fighting out of the happiest place on earth, Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico. Fun young prospect in the lightweight division. He's 13-2 as a pro, is Loco Torres. 12 of those 13 wins coming inside the distance, and it's 6 knockouts and 6 submissions. So he's an equal opportunity finisher. His kid's average fight time as a professional is 2.6 minutes. And the only time he's been out of the first round, he went all the way to decision. So this guy's only been out of the first round once in 15 fights. Loco is big and long for the division. He's listed at 5'10", but I think he might be taller than that. And he's got a 73-inch reach. Loco has been finished in both of his losses, and both times were submissions by leg lock. So that's something to keep in mind. Once by knee bar and once by heel hook. So this kid might not have the best leg lock defense, but I am thinking it's something he's worked on since then. He's still young. He's still improving. Torres uses his length well on the feet. He throws with power as evidenced by his 6 early KO victories. In his brief UFC stint, he throws over 20 distance strike attempts per minute, and he lands over 10, but it's only a 3-minute sample size. So, it really doesn't mean that much. We're missing information on this kid. We really are. There is very little tape on him. He's only been out of the first round once, and we really haven't seen him grapple much. But he does have 6 submissions on his pro record with several rear naked chokes. So it's obvious he has a somewhat functional grappling game. I suppose you could say I'm waiting to see him face an opponent that can get into the second round with him so we can find out if this guy has the ability to win minutes and not just moments at this level. And that's something that we have to find out about a lot of these regional scene guys, because they are going to kill their regional scene opponents if they're really good. But once they get up to the UFC, are they still going to be dusting dudes in the first 30 seconds? Or are they going to have to count on a plan B, a plan C, a plan D when those early knockouts, those early submissions don't come? And that's what we need to find out about Manuel Torres here, is if he's going to be able to put together a 15-minute game plan that will allow him to be able to win enough minutes to win some decisions, because I think he's 1-0 in decisions in his career, and it was probably against a guy that was just as tired as him when, at the end of the fight, because it was a regional scene fight. And Loco Torres is going to be squaring off against Trey Ogden here, who's a veteran. He's 33 years old. He's got a 16-5 pro record, and he's got 11 wins coming inside the distance by way of submission. Trey has never won by KO in his pro career. He's a well-rounded fighter. He stays long on the feet, and he mixes up his weapons well. He definitely has a functional stand-up game that's UFC ready, but he does his best work on the ground. Trey has a tricky submission game. He showed a very good guillotine in the Levitt fight, and he's locked up a pretty arm triangle in the Okanovich fight as well. Trey's got 5 rear naked chokes and 4 guillotines on his record, so those are obviously his favorite submissions. Trey's been finished in 3 of his 5 losses, and he's been subbed in 3 of those losses, twice by Gilly, both to UFC veteran Thomas Gifford, and once by rear naked choke to Nick Brown. Trey's a UFC-ready fighter who was well tested on the regional scene, fighting in reputable organizations like Bellator, LFA, Kansas City Fighting Alliance, and Fury. We saw him show a functional striking game on short notice versus Levitt, but he gassed out late, and he outstruck a tall, rangy, dynamic striker in Daniel Zellhuber on a full camp in his last outing, busting many parlays in the process. Ogden loves throwing his jab and check left hook from the orthodox position, and he goes to the legs a lot, and he scores points with leg kicks while also using those kick attacks to maintain range and stay safe defensively. He did a good job of mixing in the takedown attempts in the Zellhuber fight. He only got one, but he got it in the last 40 seconds of the second round, and he got to Zellhuber's back by the end of the round. So it was a very high fight IQ move to close a round by Ogden by getting that takedown and getting to Zellhuber's back in what was a close round up to that point. Trey looks like more of a minute winner than a moment winner at this level, but I haven't seen much of his ground game at this level, so he could potentially show a new wrinkle to his game next time. So in summary, it's an interesting stylistic matchup here. It's the minute winning of Trey Ogden versus the moment winning and explosive finishing potential of Loco Torres. Which fighter is going to be the successful in implementing their pace and making the fight their fight? Loco Torres is 5 years younger, and he's got a 1-inch reach advantage. He's been by far the more explosive moment winner and finisher as a pro, and he has just as many knockouts as he does submissions. He throws more volume on the feet and defensively looks to have the power advantage, or definitely looks to have the power advantage. He has good defensive submissions when his opponents try to wrestle him, and he will use his guillotine to defend takedowns, much like we saw in Sam Patterson's pre-UFC tape. Trey's 1 inch taller on paper. He's got 6 more professional fights, 125 more minutes in the pro cage, and over 26 more minutes in the UFC cage. While Trey looks good in distant kickboxing fights, I don't think that this is how that fight will play out, as Loco Torres lives up to his nickname and he brings pressure, pace, and he throws with fight-ending intentions. Trey will probably do his best work here in the grappling exchanges, so we'll see how Torres' wrestling defense holds up at this level. Trey has fought the better brand of competition over his longer career for sure. I am going to be looking at the under 1.5 or the fight doesn't start round 2 for this fight. And I'd like to get them at plus money, obviously. Torres brings wars, and he's a great finisher, but the only time Loco has been out of the first round in his pro career, he actually went the full 15. So if Ogden can weather the early storm, he could probably win the second and third, as we don't really know how Loco's conditioning will hold up outside the first round because we've never really seen it. Even the tape, the fight that he did go to decision, there's no tape on that. You can't see how he looked in that fight. So I think the most likely result is Loco Torres by first round knockout, as Trey isn't dangerous enough on the feet to slow down this fight early. And I think Manuel is going to land big shots early, swarm for the finish. Favorite bet, though, is definitely going to be the fight doesn't start round 2. And I think that if the fight gets out of round 1 and Manuel Torres predictably does slow down because of the way that he fights, because he doesn't pace himself, because he throws everything with 100% power and looks to finish with everything that he does, I think we could see Trey Ogden, who's got 68.75% of his pro wins by submission. I think we could absolutely see him getting one of those 11 of the 16 submission wins there, get a submission win against Loco Torres in the second round. So I've got a small bet, a half-unit bet on Trey Ogden to win by submission at plus 550 here. But the pick is Manuel Loco Torres to win by first round knockouts. So Loco Torres by KO in round 1 is the pick. But like I say, I'm betting the Samurai Ghost to win by submission because plus 550 just seemed like a really wide number for a guy who's won 11 of 16 professional wins or by submission. He's never knocked anybody out, and he's got 5 decision wins. And in Loco Torres' only 2 losses, you're talking about guys that submitted him both times. So on the Ogden side, out of the 18 fights, the 16 Ogden wins and the 2 Torres losses, 13 of those 18 finished by submission. So yeah, Trey Ogden by submission is a bet. Manuel Torres by knockout in round 1 is the pick. All right. Next fight is going to be another banger. We got CJ Vergara going up against Daniel da Silva Lacerda. All right. So CJ right now is minus 240. We got da Silva plus 205. Fight doesn't go to decision. Juice to the tits at minus 650 here. That is a very, very wide line, but it's a Daniel da Silva fight. The guy's never seen the scorecards in his entire career of 15 fights. So let's start talking about CJ Vergara here. He's a hometown kid, straight out of San Antonio, and he's always trained at Pete Spratt Muay Thai since his third amateur fight. CJ's 10-4-1 as a pro. He's got 6 of those 10 wins coming inside the distance, all of them by knockout. He's a pressure fighter first and foremost. He walks forward like Michael Myers with a machete. He wants to keep fights standing, and he wants to overwhelm you with volume and tire you out by making you move backwards. CJ has no desire to take you down, but if he gets a reverse or a knockdown, he will get on top and land big ground and pound, like we saw him do in the Jacob Silva fight and in the Clayton Rodriguez fight. CJ's pressure is going to be huge against Lacerda because Daniel's been known to break all of his as all of his losses are finishes, and Daniel throws tons of kicks on the feet. So CJ's pressure will make it difficult for him to get those kicks off. As long as CJ can avoid the big shot and stay out of Daniel's sub attempts, I think this will be a very good matchup for him. And on the other side with Lacerda, he's an absolute wild man. He's 11-4 as a professional. All 15 fights have finished inside the distance. Of Daniel's 11 wins, 6 are by submission, 5 are by knockout. And of his 4 losses, 3 are by knockout and 1 is by submission. Obviously, he's a killer-be-killed fighter. Daniel has only seen the second round twice in his career. Daniel comes out throwing big kicks on the feet, teep kicks, push kicks, front kicks, head kicks. He looks to frustrate his opponent, make them try to take him down to where Daniel is most comfortable, on his back, where he throws up arm bars and triangles. Of his 6 submission wins, 4 are by armbar and 2 are by triangle. So he's definitely more of a bottom player than a top player. Daniel da Silva's game kind of reminds me of Joel Alvarez, but he isn't nearly as good. The one time I saw Daniel get a takedown, he got subbed by Figueiredo with a knee bar. So da Silva's style is such that he really only has 1 round to get the win because the pace at which he fights is unsustainable for more than a few minutes. He throws everything with 100% power. He throws up submissions constantly from his back. He mixes in takedown attempts as well, which are obviously very taxing to the cardio. Daniel Lacerda is the male version of Liang Na, basically. Just goes completely balls out for 3 minutes, and then if he doesn't get the finish, it's just over, and he's going to tap out to whatever comes next. No cardio, 100 miles per hour right out of the gate, spamming head kicks, submission attempts, 2 minutes of gas, then checks out. So, yeah, I mean, and he's kind of like Alvarez in that he'll just throw all these crazy kicks and just pressure and just try to drown you in volume and really make you uncomfortable on the feet, get you to shoot that takedown. He'll let you get that takedown. Then he wants to play jiu-jitsu from his back. And on the regional scene against Brazilian lower-level competition, it worked beautiful for him. But now up here at the UFC level where guys know how to defend submissions and when they know how to counter, kicks that aren't set up well, guys like da Silva are not having much success. So in summary, CJ Vergara has got 110 more minutes in the pro cage. He's got 30 more minutes in the UFC cage. He's got the better cardio. He's got the better durability. He's fought and beaten the much better level of competition. His striking is meat and potatoes, but it works well, along with his pressure style up at this level. Lacerda, though, is 5 years younger than CJ. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage. He's a switch stance fighter, and he's the more explosive finisher and by far the more dangerous submission grappler. He has a more dynamic stand-up game at distance, but Vergara's pressure style should be difficult for Lacerda in terms of his ability to be able to find space to get his kicks off. Lacerda is always live for a first-round finish, as we have seen CJ subbed twice in his career, and we've seen CJ get sparked early in fights on the feet as well, namely against Jacob the Animal Silva in the Fury FC Championship bout. This one is going to be a banger for as long as it lasts. I love the under 1.5 rounds for this fight. The fight doesn't start round 2, is another one I like. And I think CJ will break Daniel with forward pressure and big shots, probably right around the end of round 1. So, yeah, calling CJ Vergara to win this fight by first round knockout. So let's get that up on Tapology here. CJ Vergara by knockout. Hopefully he makes weight this time. And hopefully Daniel De Silva makes weight and doesn't do the blonde hair, blonde goatee, and the blonde goatee combination. It did not look good on him. He should keep his hair its natural color and fight his fight. But yeah, CJ Vergara, first round knockout is the pick for that fight, everybody. All right, the next one is going to be Officer Trevin Giles squaring off against Preston Pressure Parsons. This is going to be a hell of a fight. Really looking forward to seeing Parsons back in there. And let's get the notes up. So we'll start with Officer Trevin. He's a veteran of the sport. He turned pro at the age of 21. He's got a 15-4 pro record, very impressive record, 19 pro fights. 11 of those 19 wins, 11 of those 15 wins have come inside the distance. He's got 5 submissions and 6 knockouts. Trevin's always fought good competition, whether it was on the regional scene against guys like Brendan Allen, Ryan Spann, Hurricane Ike Villanueva, but also at the UFC level. He's fought guys like Roman Dolidze, Dricus du Plessis, Zach Cummings, Gerald Mearshart, Michael Morales. He's fought really good guys. This will be Trevin's third fight at welterweight, where he's been 1-1 so far, but he's looked a bit lackluster. On the feet, Trevin has a traditional martial arts style. He bounces up and down on the balls of his feet. He stands sideways. He keeps his hands at his hips. He darts in and out with a fast, accurate jab and a powerful straight right, and he tries to catch his opponents when they try to enter with counters. He throws his jab from his hip, and it's probably his best punch, but he doesn't throw it nearly enough. He does a good job managing distance, and he's only absorbing 2.76 distance strikes per minute spent at distance with a 63.76% distance striking defense. So he's very difficult to find on the feet. Trevin's landed and absorbed 3 knockdowns in his 10 UFC fights, so he can definitely be a sniper when he lands, but he's also gotten a bit irresponsible defensively on the feet, especially in the Morales fight, as he overextended and he got dropped and finished by Michael. To add insult to injury, it looked like referee Mike Beltran wanted to wrestle Trevin after he jumped in to stop the fight. It was pretty funny, man. Beltran jumped in and he thought that Trevin didn't know the fight was over, but Trevin's like, I know the fight's over, but Beltran was trying to get wrist control on him and trying to maintain height, and was it looked like he really did want to wrestle Trevin and see if he could win 5 or 6 seconds off of him. But poor Trevin, you just lost that fight. And then you get that stinky dude with the long beard on top of you trying to wrestle you. This could be a very difficult sport sometimes, you guys. We got to keep that in mind. But yeah, Trevin's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. He's been very efficient at getting takedowns when he attempts them. He's completed 11 of 19. That's 58% for 1.46 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's got 73% takedown defense on 30 attempts against at the UFC level. But when he does get taken down, he gets controlled for long periods of time. Lou Kosi got the only takedown he attempted, and he got 3 minutes and 36 seconds of control time from that takedown. Dricus du Plessis got 2 takedowns in the first round of their fight, but he got about 1.5 minutes of control time. So that's not too bad, and most of it was clinch control time as Trevin did get back up. And in the Dolidze fight, Roman gets a takedown in the first, and he gets almost 2 minutes of control time off of that takedown between ground control time and clinch control time. So, and he gets a reverse in the third round, does Dolidze off of Giles, and he gets 1:38 of control time off of that reverse. Even against James Krause, Giles gets taken down in the first, and he allows 3 minutes and 22 seconds of control time to a welterweight fighting up a weight class on 24 hours notice. If he can't stop Preston's takedowns and has a hard time getting back up, Preston is going to make this fight look easy. But we have to keep in mind that Trevin has been in there with several high-level grapplers before, most of them middleweights. Brendan Allen on the regional scene, Roman Dolidze, Gerald Mearshart, Michael Morales down at 170, Dricus Duplessis at 185, Antonio Braga Neto at 185, Zach Cummings at 185. But Parsons might be one of the most active wrestlers Giles has ever seen. And as the most takedown attempts Giles has ever seen in a UFC fight was 6 from Bavon Lewis. And Bavon Lewis is a striker. So Trevin has shown several bad instances of in-fight decision-making in the UFC. He voluntarily grappled with Mearshart going into his guard in the third round of a fight that he was winning. He wound up getting swept and subbed shortly thereafter. He dropped Dolidze in the third, then went to the ground with him, got swept by a nasty knee bar attempt and almost got subbed, then got controlled for a while. He got sloppy against Morales, overextended on an overhand right and got countered and slept. He will grapple when he has a striking advantage. He will strike when he's the better grappler. So he's a very frustrating fighter to back. But Trevin is still only 30 years old, and he's got 19 professional fights, and he's been fighting studs since day one. So, Trevin is just, he's seen a lot more than Preston Parsons has. But Preston's a good young prospect out of the 904, Jacksonville, Florida stand-up. He's 27 years old. He's got a 10-3 pro record, and he's fought high-level regional scene competition early in his career. So he comes into the UFC already a well-rounded and well-tested mixed martial artist. Preston is a killer-be-killed fighter. He's finished 9 of his 10 pro wins, all by submission, and he's been finished in all 3 of his professional losses. Preston's an okay striker. He's mechanical. He throws meat and potato strikes, but he mostly uses his striking game to set up his wrestling. And he does that by constantly pressuring. Once he gets fights to the ground, he is submission over position, and he definitely has a tendency to get sloppy and get reversed on the ground. Preston brings a very good gas tank along with his high pressure, high output, and wrestling heavy attack. And unless he fights strikers with good takedown defense, I think his fight style will get him a lot of wins at this level. Preston is 27, so he will continue to get a lot of improvement in, and he will learn from his UFC experience. But his pre-UFC losses, they came against UFC veterans like Mike Perry, who Preston fought when he was 20 years old. Preston fought Mike Perry when Preston was 20. Then he fought Valdir Araujo, who Preston fought when he was 21 years old. I don't think we've ever seen the best of Preston yet, but his performance against Evan Elder, who was up a weight class on short notice, was a really impressive one. He showed great wrestling. He showed that Olympic medalist Daniel Cormier was drooling cage side about the wrestling. And he showed a very aggressive submission game and great conditioning. So I can't wait to see what's next from this young man. So in summary, Officer Giles is going to be the bigger dude. He's fought much bigger dudes than Preston Parsons. He's got 1-inch height, and he's got a 3-inch reach advantage as Giles. He's got 6 more fights as a pro and over 100 more minutes in the UFC cage. And he's got the UFC experience advantage with 8 more fights and 95 more minutes in the UFC cage. Trevin is the better striker at range. He has a fast jab and excellent distance striking defense at almost 64%. Trevin's fought the much better brand of competition at the UFC level and probably on the regional scene as well, even though Preston fought several regional scene studs as well. Preston is 3 years younger. He has the better finish rate as a pro, and he will be the more dangerous submission grappler and the more committed wrestler in this fight. I think Preston's pressure and pace will make things very difficult for Trevin, who does his best work in lower volume fights as a middleweight. I'm anxious to see how he does against a 170er that pressures on the feet, makes you walk backwards while also making you grapple in every round. I think Preston wins this fight, and I think he breaks Trevin Giles in the 3rd round. I'm picking Preston pressure Parsons to win this one by 3rd round submission. I can't wait for this fight, though, because I'm a big fan of Preston Parsons. I love fighters that fight like him. I like fighters that use conditioning, forward pressure, grappling, and pace and to win fights, because I think that there are a lot of fighters that just are not equipped to deal with that kind of an attack. And Trevin Giles is a low output fighter. If you let him fight his fight, he's going to stay at distance, do that thing where he kind of like moves back and forth like this, and he's always sideways. He's bouncing up and down, and he's trying to land big shots and drop you. And he's accurate, and he's fast, especially at the middleweight weight class. I don't think his speed is going to be as special down here at 170 as it was up at 185. But like I say, I think it's the pace that Parsons brings that's going to be very difficult for Trevin Giles to find his way in the fight. So I'm picking Preston to get the job done here, you guys. Great one. The next fight that we're going to talk about, Steven Peterson, Ocho at minus 146, going up against Lucas Alexander, the Fusion Excel product at plus 126. Fight doesn't go to decision, plus money at plus 105. Okay. Hang on just a second, you guys. All right. Miles. Ring a ding ding, man. What's up? Saying let's cash like flippity flapjacks this weekend. Uncle Weezy, I appreciate you, Miles. Thank you so much for the donation. I just wanted to check and see if there were any here. Appreciate all you guys that are hanging out here in the chat. Looks like it's just popping off right now. Let me see here. Hang on just a second. We've got 55 of you hanging out live here for the Sandhagen versus Vera card. Smash that like if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you really want to support your Uncle Weezy for the week he brings you, for the work he brings you every single week, please join the Patreon. All right. So let's talk now about this fight here, which is going to be Steven Ocho Peterson versus Lucas Alexander. Let's get these stats up on the screen. And we're going to start first talking about Steven Ocho Peterson. He's a tough journeyman. He's out of Fortis MMA, so he's going to be a hometown fighter as well. Not a San Antonio guy, but a Dallas guy, you know. Ocho has got 19-10 pro record. He's got 11 wins coming inside the distance. His UFC record is 3 wins and 4 losses. He's got 1 knockout win over Martin Bravo by spinning back fist, and every other fight has went to decision. Ocho is tough as nails. He's only been finished once in 29 pro fights. He's got a negative 2.27 distance striking differential, and he throws 2.47 less distance strike attempts per minute than his opponents do on the aggregate. So he really hasn't been a minute or moment winner on the feet outside of the Bravo fight. Ocho's durability once again shows out by having never been knocked down in 7 UFC fights in almost 100 minutes in the UFC cage. Steven has done a much better job of winning minutes in the grappling exchanges thus far in the UFC. He outcontrols his opponents at a 2.06 to 1 ratio. He spends over 37% of his UFC cage time in control time positions. Steven's got 10 takedowns, and he averages 1.55 takedowns per 15 minutes, while allowing 1.4 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 64% takedown defense on 25 attempts against. But Steven has been very efficient in the control time positions by showing the ability to get back up when he does get taken down and hold fighters down when he's the one wrestling. He brings high volume wars. So if he goes up against fighters who don't have durability or heart, Ocho can find ways to take fights over late and potentially break guys. His fight with Erosa was an instant classic. And although he isn't skilled on the feet or technical, I should say he's scrappy. And he uses meat and potatoes techniques to try to score points and wear his opponents down. He took 13 months off after the war with Erosa, and he's back against Lucas Alexander this Saturday. And Lucas is a 27-year-old striker. He's training out of Fusion Excel. He's 5'11" with a 73-inch reach, and he's got a 7-3 pro record in a 6-year pro career. He has 3 wins inside the distance. They're all by knockout, and he's been finished in all 3 pro losses, all by submission. On the feet, Lucas strikes long. He throws heavy low leg kicks, and he has a straight 1-2 down the pipe that's crisp and technical. He does his best work when he's allowed to pick his opponents apart from range. He uses his wrestling in reverse in order to keep fights standing. He digs for underhooks. He gets his back off the cage when he's standing, and when he gets top position, he's smart. He tries to win a minute there, and then he tries not to get reversed, and he stands back up, and he gets the fight back to where he's the most comfortable, which is at distance striking range. So we saw him get his back taken by Brito and choked out from the standing backpack position in a fight he took on short notice. But that opportunity opened the door for this fight against Ocho Peterson. Alex is definitely a guy who needs to keep the fight standing in order to be the best version of himself in the cage. So it's an interesting matchup. Ocho Peterson is the far more experienced and tested fighter. Ocho's got 19 more professional fights. He's got 140 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's got 6 more minutes or 6 more years as a pro fighter. He's the far more durable fighter, having only been finished once in 29 professional fights. He definitely fights at a much higher pace than Alexander is used to fighting. And Peterson is without question the superior submission grappler, as he's a BJJ black belt. He's got 8 career wins by submission, and he's never been subbed in 29 professional fights. Steven is active looking to finish fights with submissions, and he's attempted 0.93 submissions per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents at a 2.06 to 1 ratio. And Ocho has fought and beaten the better competition over their respective careers. Lucas is 5 years younger. He's 1 inch taller, and he's got a 3-inch reach advantage. He will be the more technical and powerful striker, and by far the more dangerous fighter on the feet here. I haven't seen Peterson employ a wrestling-heavy game plan since the Pena fight 4 years ago, and I don't know if I can count on his ability to get Lucas down and win tons of minutes there if Lucas is unwilling to engage in the grappling. I think Lucas is going to be way better on the feet, but obviously Steven has faced a much better brand of competition over his career, so I can't assume Lucas will be that much better than Ocho at distance. So for that reason, I'm going to pick Ocho Peterson to win this fight by decision. And I think Lucas by decision might be a cheeky look this week due to the fact it's so hard to finish Peterson, and we could see Lucas win the fight on damage even if Peterson is the hometown guy. So over here on the Tapology page, we're going to pick Ocho Peterson to win this fight by decision. All right. The next fight is going to be Daniel the Pit Pineda plus 245 squaring off against Top Gun Tucker Lutz minus 285. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 210 for this fight. So the Pit is a veteran of the sport, you guys. He's got 44 professional fights. Let me get his stats up here for you so you can see them. And by the way, these stats available on the Patreon. 44 professional fights, a 27-14-0 and 3 no contest record with an incredible 100% finish rate in his 27 wins, 9 knockouts, 18 submissions for Daniel the Pit Pineda. He's a dangerous wherever the fight goes. On the feet, he throws savage calf kicks that almost always make his opponents switch stances after 3 or 4 of them land. Those leg kicks set up everything else that he does, whether it be shooting in for a takedown, getting into the clinch, or setting up his submission game from anywhere the fight goes on the ground. Pineda's got rear naked chokes. He's got guillotines. He's got triangle arm bars. He's got kimuras, heel hooks. He's got a knee bar amongst his 18 career submissions. So obviously he's an opportunistic submission grappler from the top or from the bottom. The problem with Pineda's stand-up game is it's one-dimensional. Outside of the calf kicks, there really isn't much to worry about, and he's very hittable on the feet, showing only 48% distance striking defense in the UFC since 2013, and that's terrible. And definitely a symptom of why he's 0-5 in his career in decisions and why he has a negative 1.46 distance striking differential at the UFC level since 2013. Daniel's fights take place in grappling positions over 57% of his UFC cage time. So that's a good thing for a guy who is as dangerous and active with his sub attempts like Pineda is. But Pineda's only gotten 5 of his 27 takedown attempts. That's less than 20%, 18 point something percent. And while only showing 40% takedown defense, and he's allowing 5.01 takedowns per 15 minutes. So if a fighter has good top control, wrestling, and submission defense, and they can easily win minutes against a guy like Pineda. But it's dangerous to try because Daniel is so diverse and active with his submission attempts. Daniel's fought the much better brand of competition over his career, and he's recently shown his conditioning is not up to snuff, and he's even more dependent on the finish these days as a result of his conditioning not looking good. Fighters that can weather the storm early will have success late against Daniel. However, if they get hurt by the calf kicks and get sloppy shooting a takedown, they can get caught in a web and subbed. Daniel's always an exciting killer-be-killed finisher who's never really in boring fights. Now, Tucker Lutz is only 28 years old. He's training out of Team Ground Control in Baltimore, Maryland. He's 12-2 as a pro, with 8 of those 12 wins coming inside the distance. Between his Dana White Contender Series and UFC fights, Tucker's 3-1, and all 4 of those fights went to decision. Tucker's a well-rounded fighter who game plans to fight to the weaknesses of his opponent. He has kickboxing and wrestling backgrounds, and he mixes the martial arts well. On the feet, Tucker does a good job of moving in and out of range. He seems as comfortable leading as he is countering, and his volume and pressure are both solid. Tucker mixes up his targets well. He throws in combination, and he's shown a good chin up at this level. So far in his 2 UFC fights versus Aguilar and Sabatini, he's got a positive 1.3 distance striking differential, but his distance striking defense is 46%. That leaves a lot to be desired. Tucker will definitely mix in the wrestling when it behooves him, as we saw in the Blackledge fight on DWCS, where he out-grappled Sherrard by getting 4 takedowns to Sherrard's 2, and he out-controlled Sherrard 7 minutes and 51 seconds to 3 minutes and 23 seconds, outstriking him 26-16 at distance, and winning a 30-27 unanimous decision on all 3 cards. In his UFC debut versus Aguilar, Tucker got 3 takedowns, and he got over 3 minutes of control time while he stuffed both of Kevin's takedown attempts, and he outstruck Kevin at distance 91-72. We saw Tucker attempt 0 takedowns in his WCS debut versus Chase Gibson, and he outlanded Chase 71-47 at distance. It was only in the Sabatini fight that we saw Tucker unable to find a weakness in his opponent's skill set, and Tucker got outcontrolled 11-1, but the distance striking battle was close, but that fight was only there for less than 3 minutes. Tucker's a good fighter. He doesn't take stupid risks. He doesn't have one-punch power or a crazy opportunistic submission game, and he knows that. But as a result, he finds he seems to understand how important game planning is and finding ways to consistently win minutes by fighting to his opponent's weaknesses. We've seen Tucker take different game plans in the past that meet his strengths and work towards his opponent's weaknesses. In this case, he needs to keep his calf safe from Pineda's low leg attacks, and he needs to not go to the ground with Danny early in the fight where Danny is so dangerous. So in summary, Pineda is the way more experienced and well-tested fighter. He's got 26 more professional fights. He's got 100 more minutes of pro cage time, and he's got 8.5 more years as a pro fighter. Daniel is by far the more potent finisher and moment winner in this fight. He's got savage low leg kicks that make his opponents panic, and it usually helps Danny open up his clinch entries that he uses to try to set up his takedowns and his submissions. Daniel is the far more dangerous submission grappler, and he's fought the better and more experienced competition. Tucker Lutz is 9 years younger. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage. Those are both significant. He's the better game planner and minute winner. He throws more volume on the feet. He's more accurate, and he mixes up his targets well. He's going to the head, the body, the legs, and he's mixing it up. This is evidenced by his 4-1 career record in decisions, while Pineda is 0-4 in his career in decisions. Tucker will be the better offensive and defensive wrestler here, and he will have the superior conditioning by a mile. This feels like a spot where Tucker will have to weather the early storm, not take more than 3 or 4 of those nasty calf kicks of Pineda's. And if I see him taking this fight over down the stretch as Tucker turns up the volume and Pineda starts to fade. So I'm thinking Lutz round 3 or decision wouldn't be a bad look. And I'm picking Tucker Lutz to win this one by decision. All right. I love his minute winning. You know, I think Tucker Lutz is pretty underrated, actually. I like his overall game. good conditioning. Like I say, he game plans well, and that's just so important at this level. Knowing who you are as a fighter, fighting to your strengths, and fighting to your opponent's weaknesses. And when you see a guy like Lutz, who's taken different paths to get to the same goal, and that goal is victory, it shows that, he's got a full toolbox of skills to use in that cage, and he knows when to use what tools. So he's the kind of guy I like to bet on. The problem is that Pineda now is old, and everybody kind of feels like he's done. And as a result of that, and as a result of him being off the juice, the line is just a little bit wide. But I think Tucker Lutz absolutely gets the job done here. And Tucker Lutz, round 3 or decision, I think might be something I'm taking a look at this week. All right. The next fight that we're going to talk about is an absolute banger, and it is Chidi Bang Bang Njokuani at -148, squaring off against Albert Duraev at +128. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at -275. I'm going to save these picks, and then I'm going to go to the homepage. I'm going to go to the fight card because I think it's important that we look at Albert Duraev and just admit he's a handsome man, and it's a great Tapology picture. He's got a beautiful black Mercedes there, black shirt, black slacks, black shoes, black phone, sunglasses, great smile, great neck beard. It's just a quality picture overall. Is it top 5? Maybe, maybe not. Is it top 10? It's top 10, you guys. Albert Duraev stepping into the cage against Chidi Bang Bang Njokuani. This is going to be a really, really fun fight. So let's get these stats up on the screen. And we got Chidi's the favorite here, and he's a 31-fight and 15-year veteran of the sport of MMA. He's seen it all. He's fought everybody on his way up to the UFC. 34 years old. He's got a 22-8 record with 1 no contest. And he's got 15 of those 22 wins are inside the distance. And of those 15 inside the distance wins, 14 of them by knockout. Chidi's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he does his best work on the feet at striking range, as evidenced by that 63.64% KO rate in his wins. Chidi's racked up 3 knockdowns in his 3 UFC fights and 1 DWCS fight. And in his UFC fights, he's landing a knockdown on over 7% of the distance strikes that he lands. So Chidi not only has a positive distance striking differential, but he's showing crazy power on the feet as well. He switches stances. He's constantly feigning to get his reads, and then he attacks accordingly. Chidi does great work offensively, not just at distance, you guys, but in the clinch. Knees, elbows. We saw the knees in the Sosa fight and in the Torres fight, and we saw the elbow in the Dusko fight where he just slept him with that clinch elbow. So in this particular matchup, we need to be concerned though with Chidi's ability to keep this fight standing, where he's going to be much better than Albert Duraev. In the Todorovic and Rodriguez fights, we saw Chidi get taken down 3 times on 10 attempts. And he was controlled for 267 seconds out of the 675 that those fights took place for. So that's almost 40% control time that he allowed in the Rodriguez and in the Todorovic fights. We haven't seen much of Chidi's conditioning lately outside of the DWCS fight against Sosa, where he went into round 3, and it definitely checked out there. But in round 2 against Gregory Rodriguez, it did not check out. But it was one of those things, he was trying to finish the fight. He landed absolutely big shots. And I think that, if the doctors had stopped the fight because of that cut, or if Rodriguez wasn't as durable, we'd see Chidi Njokuani be 3-0 at this level with the Dana White Contender Series win. And he'd probably be a much bigger favorite here. Albert Duraev is also 34 years old. He's out of Chechnya, and he's a former welterweight. He's got a 15-4 pro record, and 12 of those wins have come inside the distance. He's got 9 submissions and 3 knockouts. Albert was 170 and 185-pound champ in ACB. He won their welterweight tournament and then moved up to 185 and won and defend that belt before getting his shot on Dana White Contender Series, where he shaved the ass of Kyle Bittencourt via neck crank at 3:29 of the very first round. He got a takedown about 25 seconds into that fight and then easily advanced position, got to the submission. Duraev has a functional striking game. He has some knockouts to his credit, but at the UFC level, it's pretty clear we're going to see the best version of Albert Duraev when he's able to get the fight to the ground and work from top control like he did in the Bittencourt fight. The conditioning has definitely been a concern at this level, as we saw him nearly dead in the third round of the Kopylov fight. But to be fair, Kopylov was just as dead, and he had to quit after his eye was swollen shut after the second round of the Buckley fight. And at the age of 34, which to be fair is how old Chidi is as well, we probably won't see an uptick in the conditioning and the output from Albert. Albert has been finished in all 4 of his pro losses, all of them by KO. So when he can't get fights to the ground and keep them there, and when he is at striking deficiency, he gets knocked out. And he's definitely at a striking deficiency in this matchup versus Chidi. Albert has always fought a solid level of competition, though, over his career. So in summary, both of these guys are the exact same age. As a matter of fact, Chidi Njokuani, born New Year's Eve, 1988, and Albert Duraev, born January 5th, 1989. So these guys are only 6 days apart. But Chidi's got 12 more pro fights than Albert does. He's got 90 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's got 4 more years as a pro fighter. Chidi's the better technical kickboxer, and he's going to be the better minute and moment winner on the feet and in the clinch. Chidi should have the better conditioning here, especially seeing as it will be most likely be Albert Duraev trying and needing to wrestle here. Albert has been the better finisher as a pro with an 80% finish rate, and he's also the superior wrestler and more opportunistic submission grappler. I like Chidi in this spot. Albert has been 3 out of 18 on his UFC takedown attempts thus far, and Chidi's really mean in the clinch with the knees, and he throws those elbows too in the clinch. I think Chidi can stuff the takedowns and get back up, even if Albert does get this fight to the ground. In addition, Chidi is absolutely nasty in the clinch. We saw that elbow that sent Dusko to the land of wind and ghosts. We saw the clinch knees that shaved the asses of Mario Sosa and Christian Torres. I see Chidi wearing Albert down, maybe stuffing a takedown late in the second. I think he gets on top, and I think he finishes this fight with ground and pound. I'm picking Chidi Bang Bang Njokuani to win this fight by second round knockout. Over that man. That's how confident I am. You don't just pick against somebody that can take that good of a picture. Look at the background. It's even a beautiful building there, a beautiful car, great outfit. Like I say, it's all there, but Chidi, I think, is going to get this job done. So let's go back to edit these picks, and then we're going to go here. Bang Bang Njokuani. I'm calling a second round KO. All right. That brings us to the main card. We're going to start talking about the main card. It is Alex Perez versus Manel Kape. Perez is plus 150. Manel Kape minus 175. Fight doesn't go to decision. Sitting up here at minus 180 for this one. All right. Let's see here. Just a second. Okay. Very good. There is Perez Kape. So let's first start talking about Alex Perez, as he's 32 years old this week. Happy birthday, Alex Perez, actually. March 21st. It should have been when I kicked off yesterday. It should have been Alex Perez's birthday, but today it's a day later. So I'm a day late and $1 short, wishing Alex Perez a happy birthday. But he's 32 years old now. Or 31. I'm sorry, 31 years old. All right. Alex is a veteran. He's got 31 professional fights. He's got a 24-7 pro record in a 12-year career. 12 of those 24 wins come inside the distance. He's got 7 submissions and 5 knockouts. He's not the greatest finish rate overall, but Alex has finished 4 of his 6 UFC wins inside the distance with 2 submissions and 2 knockouts. He's shown great minute winning potential over his career as he's got a 12-1 pro record in decisions, does Alex Perez. And he's won both of his UFC fights that have went to decision. Alex does great work on the feet. He's very high volume. He has nasty calf kicks, which set up everything else that he does. He's always busy. He throws in combination and with power in his hands and kicks. He's got 3 UFC knockdowns and 2 UFC knockouts. In a 30-minute sample size at distance striking range, Alex has a positive 1.57 distance striking differential with 42% accuracy and a fantastic 67% distance striking defense. In addition to that, Alex can wrestle. He's averaging 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's gotten 11 of the 25 takedown attempts that he's gone for, and he outcontrols his opponents at a 6.41 to 1 ratio. And he's got 71% takedown defense on 7 attempts against. So Alex has been the busier wrestler and has been efficient in winning minutes during the almost 45% of his fights that take place in control time positions. Alex is a dangerous finisher on top of being a great minute winner and a good wrestler. Not just because of the power he has on the feet and his hands and calf kicks, but he's also got a nasty front choke game. Alex has 3 career wins by front choke. He's got an anaconda, he's got a Bravo, and he's got a Darce choke. So he mixes up what side he goes to them on, and he's very well versed in those attacks. And he's also got a nasty arm triangle choke as well. He got against Jordan Espinoza. He wasn't even on the right side. He was in half guard on the wrong side, and he finished that choke. And not only finished it, Espinoza didn't even get to tap. He put him out from an arm triangle position that you don't really ever see people finishing from. So very, very good submission grappler is Alex Perez when he gets the fight to the ground. So, he's got a number of different ways to strangle you once the fight gets to the ground. Alex has fought a solid level of competition overall. And the 3 guys who beat him, Alexander Pantoja, the good Figgy, Davison Figueiredo, and Joseph Benavidez, they have a combined 34-12 UFC record. So he only loses to the best level of UFC competition. However, his 6 UFC wins are over guys with a combined UFC record of 16 wins and 23 losses. The average UFC record of the dudes that he's beating is 2.67 wins and 3.83 losses. Here are the names: Carlos Johns de Tomas, Eric Shelton, Jose Shorty Torres, Mark the Bumblebee de la Rosa, Jordan Espinoza, and Jussier Formiga, who I believe retired after the fight. So those are the 6 wins. So the wins aren't great. He's losing to the best level of competition. Kape probably just a tiny notch below those guys, but in terms of potential, Manel Kape's got as much potential as anybody in this division. So 11 out of Alex Perez's last 15 scheduled fights did not happen. And he's had to pull out of several fights due to injuries and a botched weight cut. We've only seen Alex Perez fight once since 2020. So it's very hard to know where he is right now as a fighter. Alex gets submitted a lot, too. That's a problem, as Alex has been submitted in 2/3 of his UFC losses and in 5 of his 7 pro losses. So, yeah, Perez, while he's got a great submission game in his own right when he grapples, he's also very prone to getting submitted. Now, on the other side, we got Manel Kape. Starboy is a terrible nickname. I hate that nickname, but that being said, Manel Kape's a very good fighter. He's only 29 years old as Manel still. He's got great size for the division, especially with a 68-inch reach. He's a southpaw. He's got 24 professional fights, an 18-6 record, and 16 of those 18 wins are coming inside the distance. 11 knockouts, 5 submissions. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. He's beaten Ode Osborne, Zhalgas Shamagulov, and David Dvorak. And he's finished both Ode and Zhalgas by first-round knockouts. He's really the only guy to, beat Zhalgas. Everybody else, loses to Zhalgas and gets gifted a victory on the scorecards. Manel went in there and just sparked his ass. Manel is dynamic everywhere the fight goes, as evidenced by his 89% career finish rate. He's got 4 UFC knockdowns in only 5 fights. He outlands his opponents at distance 4.78 to 4.39, while he shows an impressive 51% striking accuracy and a 1.82% knockdowns per total distance strikes landed. Manel's fights have taken place at distance striking range over 85% of his UFC cage time. Manel is winning only 27% of the control time positions he's been in, but he hasn't spent much time in those positions, so it's not that big of a problem. Manel is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so even if the fight does go to the ground, Manel will be comfortable and dangerous there. He's fought a very high level of competition thus far in the UFC on the aggregate, but his wins aren't spectacular in terms of the records of the guys that he's beaten. You look at the combined records of the guys that Manel has beaten, 3 wins, and it's 8 wins and 10 losses. But, you could probably give Jalgas 3 wins there and take 3 away, and then it would look like 11-7. It'd look a hell of a lot better. So in summary here, Alex Perez is the more experienced guy with 7 more pro fights. He's got 30 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's got 1 more year as a professional. He's also got 4 more UFC fights than Manel does. Alex has the better minute-winning distance striking, and he has a great low leg kick attack, and that sets up his active wrestling attack, where Alex should be the superior minute winner in the grappling exchanges if he chooses to wrestle Manel. Manel is 1 year younger. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage here. He's the more opportunistic finisher overall, and he's been more durable. Kape has the power advantage on the feet, and he will most likely be the more dangerous moment winner on the feet and on the ground. The strength of schedule numbers lean Kape. Perez has had so many canceled fights lately, and now he's only fought once since the end of 2020, and Manel Kape is hot right now. I think he can finish this fight within 2 rounds. I'm picking Manel Kape to win by 2nd round submission. All right. Kape by submission in round 2. All right. Next fight is going to be Andrea Lee versus Maycee Barber. All right. We're working hard here, you guys. We're almost there. All right. Lee right now is plus 220. Maycee Barber minus 260. The fight doesn't go to decision, plus 190. So Macy's 10 years younger, but it's Andrea Lee who's going to be bigger. She's going to be 1 inch taller. She's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here. Andrea Lee's a lot more experienced. She's got 6 more professional fights. She's got about 100 more minutes in the pro cage in comparison to Maycee. She's also got 1 more UFC level fight and about 30 more minutes in the UFC cage. At the UFC level, Maycee has finished 3 of her 6 wins, and Andrea Lee has finished 2 of her 5 wins. Neither of these ladies has ever been finished, though. While this fight's at distance striking range, it's going to be all Andrea Lee. Maycee Barber couldn't hit water if she fell out of a boat. I mean, she's not good at distance striking range. She has to use her physicality, whether it's getting takedowns or whether it's getting into the clinch and winning minutes there. She's done an excellent job of winning minutes in the clinch. But outside of that, outside of fighters either trying to take her down or Maycee being able to bully them, to pressure them, to get into the clinch where she does her best work, she's not doing great work at distance striking range. We see her landing 3.91 and absorbing 3.7. Those are both very good. But you look at Lee, she's landing 7.46 per minute at distance. She's throwing about 5 more distance strike attempts per minute. She's 12% more accurate than Maycee Barber. And she's even a little bit more defensively responsible. Maycee Barber's getting knocked down. Andrea Lee is not getting knocked down. Andrea Lee has a knockdown to her credit. Maycee Barber does not have a knockdown. So, and we got to remember some of those power numbers for Maycee came back at 115 for her, which is where she made her debut. But Maycee is extremely physical. She's a bully. And that can be so important in women's MMA where not all the people are physical. So when you're physical, that's an attribute that makes you stick out more than certain other fighters. But Macy kind of needs somebody to initiate the grappling. And when it's Macy initiating the grappling, she's not nearly as successful as when it's her opponents that are initiating the grappling. Because Macy's not going to fuck off during this entire fight. That's the way she fights. She's smaller than her opponents. She has less reach. She started off at 115 here. So she needs to close the distance. She needs to walk forward. She needs to pressure. But when her opponents are willing to circle and work that distance striking range, we see that Lee's got a nice distance striking differential here. She's in much higher volume fights. She's more accurate. She's more powerful. She's more defensively responsible. And Macy Barber has only gotten 6 takedowns in 8 fights. So I don't like this price on Macy Barber, everybody. Macy does have the slightly better strength of schedule, 1.02 to 0.9 on ratio, a little bit more in the total fights. And when we look at the wins, the ratio is a little bit better and the experience level is a little bit better. So that's interesting, but they're very similar in strength of schedule. But I think the grappling just ticks Macy Barber a little bit more because she's more physical and she wins more minutes there. The strength of schedule ticks Barber. The youth, 10 years younger, that makes a huge difference. There are 2 different parts in their career right now. But Andrea Lee's got a 4-inch reach advantage. She's the more experienced fighter, and her fights are staying standing about 58% of the time. She gets controlled about 25% of the time, but Macy's getting controlled 35% of the time. And Macy's getting 22% control time but let's say she gets 22% control time and maybe Lee gets like 8% or something like that. That still leaves 70% of the fight that's taking place at distance striking range. If that amount of the fight takes place at distance striking range, Andrea Lee can easily win this fight. So I think it's going to be close. I'm picking Macy Barber to win this one by decision, but I am not betting her. And I do have a 1-unit bet on the Andrea Lee money line here because I think that I probably should have waited and went with Andrea Lee by decision to get a little bit more value because I don't think she's finishing Macy Barber. Macy Barber's extremely durable. And we found that she's got that dog in her. She blew out her knee like 30 seconds into that Modafferi fight and went the full distance and showed that she has no quit in her at all. Macy Barber will fight for your money if you bet on her. But I'm betting on Andrea Lee here. I'm getting a fat plus money number at around a 33% implied probability. I'm fine with that. But the pick still is going to be Macy Barber to win this fight by decision. But I think Andrea Lee is very live in this spot. All right. Whoops. It's Barber by decision. That's what I'm going with. Okay. The next fight, Nate the Train Landwehr, a certified wild man, ladies and gentlemen, minus 205, squaring off against Austin Lingo, plus 175. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 150 for this fight. Lee by split is plus 2,200, says my guy Rips and Picks MMA. Wow. I will take a shot on that. I'll take a shot on that for 1/10 of a unit. What the hell to win 2.2? I like that a lot, man. Let's go. Matthew Chalk is live, drunk as fuck. Let's make some bad decisions. Let's make the good decisions. Come on, man. Let's make the good decisions. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks this week. And let's figure out how to do it on this Landwehr Lingo fight. Because this is another wide line, everybody. Austin Lingo's 6 years younger here, but it's going to be Nate with the 2-inch reach advantage, Nate with the experience advantage. He's got 10 more professional fights. He's got about 150 more minutes in the pro cage, 5 more years as a pro, 2 more fights at the UFC level, about another minute in the UFC cage. Landwehr has finished a UFC win. Lingo has not, but Lingo has got a 55% finish rate as a pro. Landwehr 56. But it's Lingo who's never been finished in his 10-fight pro career. Nate Landwehr has been finished in 3 of his 4 losses, twice by knockout, once by submission. When this fight is at distance, I think it's going to be very close. Austin Lingo throws with a ton of power, especially early in fights, and he can spark dudes early. Nate Landwehr is going to have the 2-inch reach advantage here. He throws a good amount of volume, and neither one of these guys is particularly great offensively or defensively, but they both land about what they absorb, and they both throw just a little bit. Well, I mean, Lingo throws a little bit more. Landwehr throws a little bit less. Lingo has mixed in a couple of takedowns in his 3 fights. Nate's mixed in 4 takedowns in 5 fights. Both of these guys are spending about the same amount of time at distance striking range. For Lingo, it's about 2/3 of his fights, and for Landwehr, it's just a little bit more than that. Landwehr's fought the better level of competition, though, as a pro and on the regional scene. I mean, you look at Landwehr pre-UFC. I'm not going to show it because I have to go back out of this page, but he was fighting over in Russia. Like, he was fighting M1 guys, all these experienced Russians, and just beating all of them. He had some great fights. He was supposed to fight Movsar Evloev over there, but it never actually happened. He's a wild man, and he's in a lot of fun fights. But right now, Nate Landwehr is a big favorite here. He's checking in at -205 right now, and it was wider than that earlier today. Lingo, the money is coming in on him, and he's a functional mixed martial artist, you guys. He's young. He's only 28 years old, but he's been fighting since he was 23. He's been training under Saif Sayoud over at Fortis MMA for a while now, so he's getting good coaching. So, Lingo can be absolutely getting better. Nate's almost 35 years old and a featherweight. So he's getting to the point where, there are some miles on those tires, 225 minutes in the pro cage. I think Landwehr can win this fight. I think he probably does win it by decision, but Austin Lingo is going to give him all he can handle. And Austin Lingo by first round knockout is something that I'm always interested in playing. Let's see what he's at right now. We do the fight parlays. What's Lingo by first round KO? Plus 800. That's not a bad look because Lingo's got a lot of first round KOs. All of his finishes are first round either knockouts or submissions, but they're club and sub type submissions. So I think his power, he could probably land something and get a knockout. But I'm going to pick Nate Landwehr to win this one by decision, but I will not be laying that kind of juice on Nate the Train. This is going to be a hell of a fun fight. Both of these guys are absolute scrappers. Both of these guys really aren't in boring fights. And Nate, when he's having his way in a fight, he is so much fun to watch, man. He really enjoys fighting, and I enjoy watching him fight. So really looking forward to this one. The pick is going to be Nate the Train Landwehr to win by decision. And then, as if this card wasn't good enough already, we get to move into the Holly Holm versus Yana Santos fight. And stand up, all you Holly Holm fans. A 6-fight contract just inked by Holly Holm prior to this fight. At the age of 41 years, 4 months, and 27 days, Holly Holm is going to be fighting 7 more times in the UFC, including this Saturday. So, wow, she's back. I don't think there's really a whole lot to talk about here. Yana Santos is 8 years younger, but it's going to be Holly who's taller and having a 1-inch reach advantage here. Holly's got one less fight, but she's got about 150 more minutes in the pro cage in comparison to Yana Santos. Holly is finishing at this level. Yana is not. Holly's been finished 2 times in 6 losses. Yana has been finished 5 times in 6 losses. So Holly Holm is definitely more durable. Holly is definitely going to be the better distance striker here. And Holly's going to be the better grappler here. I really don't know where Yana is going to be better. I think Holly Holm can cage push Santos. I think she can win minutes up there against the cage. I think she'll win the minutes at distance. And I think she'll be the more likely one to go for takedowns and get them and win minutes in those positions. So, and she's fought and obviously beaten the much, much, much better brand of competition here. I think Holly Holm, frankly, I mean, she's basically won 4 out of her last 5 fights. She beat Ketlin Vieira. She easily beat Irene Aldana. She beat Pennington, lost to Amanda Nunes, and then she smoked Megan Anderson, made her look bad, out-grappled the shit out of her. So Santos is getting, knocked out by Irene Aldana, who Holly Holm absolutely cleaned up. Yana had a very close fight with Ketlin Vieira, but, both of these ladies beat Ketlin Vieira. Stoliarenko win, a Marion Renault win. She got absolutely sparked by Aspen Ladd there in the third round of their fight after she was winning those rounds early in the fight. So, yeah, I mean, I think Yana's good, but she's coming off a pregnancy here. That's a problem. And if Holly Holm's signing a 6-year deal, or a 6-fight deal, she's clearly ready. And she's always been in great shape. She's always been in magnificent condition. And you got to believe that she's going to get the job done here. The pick is Holly Holm to win this fight by decision. I don't think there's too much to break down here. And I wonder what Holly by decision is in this spot. What is the line on Holly by decision? Here, let's go to best fight odds. Holly by decision is right around even money here, minus 109 on Bet Rivers. That's not too bad. I think she gets this job done, and I think she gets it done by decision, even though Jan has been finished in 5 or 6 fights. So that could actually be a little bit risky, even picking the decision there, because Jan has gotten finished, and she's fresh off of pregnancy. All right. That brings us to the main event of the evening. We've got the minute winning, the conditioning, the toughness of Corey Sandhagen going up against the brute force power of Marlon Vera, the moment winning of Marlon Vera, the incredible durability of Marlon Vera. And we get to see something that we've been waiting for a long time. We've already seen it a couple of times now. It did not disappoint. And that is the mythical creature known as 5-round Marlon Vera. So exciting. Showed us great 5-round skills in the Font fight and in the Cruz fight, getting those big moments, finding those knockdowns. A really incredible situation here with Marlon Vera having 12 UFC knockdowns in 20 fights as a bantamweight. It is absolutely unbelievable. And we've got Corey Sandhagen, who's got 4 in 11 fights. So he's absolutely no slouch either. But, these guys have both got a 70-inch reach, but it's going to be Sandhagen that's like the taller, longer dude. Both of these guys switch stances. But Marlon Vera, 28 professional fights at the tender young age of 30. So this guy's been doing it since he was 17. He turned pro at the age of 17, and he's basically been in the UFC since he was 20. And Sandhagen has been doing this for almost 8 years now. So he turned pro at the age of 23. And he's been really good at the UFC level. 8-3. He could be 9-2 easily. He's had a couple of close decisions to TJ Dillashaw and Peter Yan. He could have easily won either one of those fights. Corey's a damn good fighter. The only person to really do a number on him was Aljamain Sterling. So while this is on the feet, Marlon Vera's pretty low volume, He's got a negative 1.3 distance striking differential. He throws 10.42 per minute, but his opponents throw 13.56. And when you see like a guy like Sandhagen, he's the opposite. He throws way more volume than his opponents. He lands 2 more distance strikes per minute than his opponents. And he's also showing power, as he's got 4 knockdowns in 777 significant strikes, but Marlon Vera, a next level of bantamweight power, having 12 knockdowns in 1,042 significant strikes landed. And then we see that Vera's got 11 takedowns in 20 fights. He averages 0.68 takedowns per 15 minutes. Corey Sandhagen averages 0.71. Neither one of these guys has spectacular takedown defense, 64% for Sandhagen, 69% for Vera. But I would say that with a guy like Sandhagen attempting 29 takedowns in 11 fights, that he's the more likely guy to wrestle here. Marlon Vera has only attempted 26 takedowns in 20 fights, so not even like 1.5 takedown attempts per 15 minutes. So Vera's definitely more active with the submission attempts when he gets to the ground. He's very active in going for subs, and he definitely tries to get back up too. Neither one of these guys wins control time positions. It's Sandhagen winning about 46%, Vera about 36%. And both of these guys don't spend a whole lot of time there, but Vera spends more time there than Sandhagen does. Sandhagen's fights take place at distance striking range about 73% of the time, and it's 65% of the time for Marlon Vera. So I really see Sandhagen winning these minutes. I see him mixing in the takedown attempts. I see these guys being equal in terms of their conditioning. I like Marlon Vera's power and moment winning potential here. I like Corey Sandhagen's volume and minute winning potential here. Because I feel like I can rely on Sandhagen's volume and I can rely on him to maybe get a takedown or two and win some minutes on the ground, I'm going to pick Corey Sandhagen to win this fight by decision because nobody's finishing Marlon Vera. The guy's durability is absolutely legendary. And I think a finish-only prop on Marlon Vera is not a bad look this week either, just because he's such a durable guy. So, yeah, Vera, Sandhagen, an absolutely baller main event. It closes out this 8-week stretch for us where we've been working very hard, trying to stack cash tickets like flapjacks, looking to finish this 8-week stretch strong here, and hopefully we can find a Corey Sandhagen win by decision to make Uncle Weezy's picks perfect this week. But yeah, Corey Sandhagen by decision is the last pick of the night. We did it. We broke down all 13 of these fights from a stats and tapes buddy perspective. We got through all of it. How many of you guys hanging out right now? 56 of you guys hanging out live. I appreciate each and every one of you. Smash that like, hit that subscribe button, join the Patreon. Here are my tracked bets thus far for UFC San Antonio. So I have got a 1-unit bet on, and we didn't see here. Sandhagen's minus 181. Vera is plus 156, and the fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at plus 105. So the tracked bets so far, Andrea Lee, 1 unit, plus 199. 2.1 units on El Magnifico, Victor Altamirano at minus 104. I think there's a chance that this Vinicius Salvador might be a big fat phony, as three of his last 4 wins are over guys with 0-0 records. I just need to see better wins out of him. Altamirano's been tested. He's went the full 5 before. He can wrestle. He's durable. He's got great striking and great conditioning. So I'm looking for Altamirano to get the job done. I've got the under 2.5 rounds in the Alex Perez versus Manel Kape fight. I got that at plus 124 for 2 units on BetOnline Sportsbook. And I've also got Trey Ogden to win by submission, plus 550 for a half unit. If he can weather that storm and Torres gasses out, Trey Ogden has never won by knockout in his career. He's got 11 of his 16 wins coming by submission. And we've got Manuel Loco Torres has been submitted in his only 2 losses. So those are the track bets so far. So we've got 5.6 units total, but I'll be looking to add on some other spots here. And I'll obviously be putting together a greasy 4-leg parlay for you guys. But that leaves us with only one order of business left in the tank. It is Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. I think during this stretch that we have had a perfect 7 for 7, and we need to make it 8 out of 8 for this 8-week stretch here for Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Last week, LaRon Murphy got the job done. He won the fight. So it cashed. We'll count it because they count against us when our guys get fucked. So, maybe this one, maybe Murphy won the fight. Maybe he didn't. It was close. Not my best pick of the 7-week stretch, but this one is going to be great. And this week's Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week is going to be Chidi Bang Bang Njokuani to shave the ass of Albert Duraev. I think he's going to stop the takedown attempts. I have not been impressed at all with Albert Duraev's wrestling outside of the Kyle Bittencourt fight. Even in the Kopylov fight, where he got Kopylov down and got to mount and almost pounded him out and almost finished that fight in the second round. Kopylov grabbed the fence, and as a result, Herzog started them back in position with with Duraev's arms locked underneath the butt. So he basically gave him the takedown. But Kopylov was stopping all the takedown attempts. Buckley was stopping all the takedown attempts. This guy is just, I thought he was better than what he was going to show. And Chidi Njokuani is the most powerful striker that he's faced up until this point. I think he's still more powerful than Joaquin Buckley. And I think he's going to spark this dude, knock him out in the very first or even the second round. And I think that Duraev is going to get tired, going to get sloppy on a takedown, wind up on his back, and get his head pounded through the canvas. Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Chidi Bang Bang Njokuani to shave the ass of Albert Duraev. Thank all of you guys, almost 60 you guys hanging out here for Just a Tip with your Uncle Weezy on a special Wednesday night edition. This marks the end of my content for this 8-week stretch. I'm still going to give you a 4-week greasy 4-leg parlay, and then I won't see you for over a week when we come back for Stat Diggers on Pub Sports Radio. So let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC San Antonio. Let's make a bunch of money. Let's make the bookies cry. And God bless each and every one of you guys for hanging out. I appreciate all you guys for your attention, for hitting that thumbs up, for hitting that subscribe. And I will see you guys tomorrow or the next day with a greasy 4-leg parlay right here on Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel. And then all we have to do is stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC San Antonio. Good night, everybody. We will talk to you soon. Good luck.